I'm going to get off my soapbox, take a drink of water. So with all of that caveated, let's continue in the lecture. So I wanted you to know that there's a plethora of problems and nuance and debate with intelligence and the best way to look at it and the best things to glean from it. So thankfully, intelligence tests have improved a lot since that World War I Army beta test we talked about. And we no longer misuse them for purposes like eugenics, at least to that extreme of an extent. There are lots of problems that led to abuses of IQ tests in the past that have tried to kind of be addressed in today's IQ tests. So these are the two most common IQ tests used today. We talked about the Stanford Binet. There's also the WAIS. I don't really super care. The Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, you don't need to know that. WAIS is the thing that we tend to use. And this is kind of giving you a general overview of what tends to be in these IQ tests. You'll see that there's a lot of verbal comprehension types of questions, a lot of perceptual questions, being able to process certain things. So there's a lot of general like arithmetic and vocab and school-related academic things, but also being able to kind of reason and complete, different string to complete the missing pieces of things and whatnot. I want to kind of just point out one additional thing though. The guy who created this test right here, the WAIS, was actually described as feeble-minded by early IQ tests. So take that with as you will, because of how ridiculous and arbitrary labeling IQ is. And the other thing I want to point out here, if you haven't caught on yet, is that all of these tests tend to test you on a math and vocab. Like if you think back to your SAT or ACT you might have taken to get into college, there's a verbal section and a math section, right? These tests do not test your ability to do anything creative or anything emotional intelligence, those types of things. Those things are kind of difficult to quantify in a test format, but that's kind of one caveat of IQ tests. They don't test all of your intelligence. So let's go through, I have a little demo here. So these are from a more modern IQ test to kind of give you an example of the types of things that are measured. So this is one type of problem. It's a visualization problem. So you're asked to pick the piece that's missing from the diagram below. I love this kind of weird problem, like problem solving puzzles. So if you're like me, feel free to pause here and think about it, but I'm going to give you the answers as we go along because I recognize not everyone's into questions. So in here, you're kind of, so I'm going to give you a pause. If you want to try it out, pause here. But if not, so in order to solve this type of puzzle, you might look at the fact that, okay, these three parts of the image, when combined together, form the third thing. And that's true of these three yellow as well. When you combine these two, you get the third thing. So you're like, all right, I've got two things left. What third thing should I add to that grouping in order to make that completed picture? So if you've got this piece, then A would be your best answer, because when you combine the bottom one and A, you'll get that little zigzag loop part. I explained that really weirdly, but that's the way my brain was looking at this problem. All right, there's also pattern recognition, which is an attempt of these tests to be as like culturally neutral as possible. More of those kind of like figure it out types of problems that can't really be taught in school. So this question is saying, find the picture that follows logically from the diagrams to the right. So again, pause here if you want to try to figure it out. But otherwise, so what this is doing is you need to notice this pattern with both types of stimuli here. So this little Tetris shape, you'll see that it is following a diagonal as you move downwards. So it's in the top left corner, it goes down one diagonal, third. So the correct answer needs to have the piece in the bottom corner. So it completes the diagonal. That narrows down to 2 already. We don't even have to pay attention to what direction the little Tetris thing goes, but you'll notice that it's kind of rotating clockwise, I believe. So that's why the little Tetris part's facing to the left. So in order to narrow these down, we've got to figure out what the black square is doing. So we have the black square first in the very first column. We have the second one in the second column, the third one in the third column, which means that the last remaining piece should be in the fourth column. So C is your correct answer here. But there are typically questions that do rely on some academic knowledge as well. So for instance, mathematical reasoning, which number should replace the question mark? So again, pause here if you want to figure it out. I'm not gonna lie, I stared at this for a while and I was determined to figure out why the correct answer was correct here, because it's not intuitive. This relies on a lot of mathematical ability. You can't just reason through this. You need to know what numbers are when you add them or divide them. You've got to have that knowledge. Here's the formula I came up with. If you look in the rows, you'll notice that if you add the first two numbers, 17 plus 8 is 25, and you divide by the third number, 25 divided by 5, you get the last number. And this is true all the way down in each of these rows. So if you apply the logic to the last one, 10 plus 6 is 16, divided by 4 would tell you the correct answer is 4 here. But like I said, I like math, and this took me a while to get this pattern. So how this tests actual intelligence and not just academic ability is beyond me. And then the last type of question I'm going to show you is a verbal type question. So which one of the sets of letters below can be arranged into a 5-letter English word? So take a second and look at these. So correct answer here is C, because if you rearrange those, you get a word like snarl. But I want to pause here. I don't have a little question symbol on the slide, but I want you to think about this. Can you see how there might be a little bias in a type of question like this? I want you to tell me what types of things you would need to be familiar with in order to answer this type of question, or how, for instance, different groups might be disadvantaged on a question like this. Think about some pros and cons of this question.